And thank you for Great Blackness for pointing out the fact that I was on air live and I didn't even have my audio on, which is completely unacceptable. And it's something about my mechanisms that, I tend to keep doing that. And I got to figure this out because it wastes a lot of time, both for me. Imagine you think you're spitting for like 10 minutes and you're not actually doing anything. So that's where I was. So I'm going to have to humble myself and come back because I feel like I built a good myth lab. And that's what matters to me is like, did I build a good myth lab? And I guess it's easy. I could just do this. And then I'm hearing my sound. So like that's my fault. And I apologize to you guys as someone who's trying to make something good for my audience and giving you guys a reason to come back. And I gotta be accountable for that. I gotta own that one, right? I gotta man up and own it the way that it should be. So I'm doing that, right? I'm humbling myself, saying I made a mistake. But man, let's get right back into this myth lab, right? So this myth lab, which I almost forgot what I was talking about, and I'm glad I didn't because this is a good one, right? We're talking about lightning, but I didn't want to go with the traditional lightning gods because that's typically about force and storm. I wanted to talk about some lesser, well-known lightning deities to kind of get into lightning itself not being one expression of force. Lightning is also not always about just destruction, right? We think about it as destruction, and sometimes we think about it as bringing Frankenstein monsters back to life. I guess that's a form of transformation there. But this is lightning in the way that we're going to look at it. We're going to look at it from three different deities. We're going to start with Oya, right, who is lightning at the gates of death and rebirth. Maybe that goes along with some Frankenstein. He used electricity too. So we're going to talk about it in that regard. We're going to talk about Chaac, who's directly above me, who comes from Mesoamerican belief systems. And his lightning actually feeds crops and civilization. So his lightning is by far already not a bad thing. His lightning is already like, okay, yeah, this is all positive, and it means that we get to live and eat food. And then this is Raijin, who lightning at sound, vibration, and like cosmic repercussion. And I'm pretty sure this is the Raiden or Raid because he's known as Raiden. I'm sure this is the same Raiden which they co-opted from or for the Mortal Kombat movies. Which why doesn't he look like that? I clearly don't understand. But whatever. Okay. So this discussion is not about which one of these deities is stronger. That's not even what we're looking for. I'm just looking more at what lightning represents in multiple belief systems, right? Because we're seeing it in a couple of belief systems. So what does this lightning actually mean? What does it actually represent? So let's get into it and let's figure out what this lightning actually means, okay? So for these cultures specifically that we're talking about, I'm going to say right off the bat that it's about power, but not necessarily about power. Like not necessarily I'm tripping and you need to bow down in power, but more of like power to change the world around you, right? So of these three, I think they're all very much community aligned deities. These are all deities who care, right? You get a lot of lightning deities, and sometimes, I don't really care about what happens to you guys. I just work here as the lightning god for this pantheon. I think all these gods here are aligned for the right reasons. I think they actually care about us. I think they use their abilities to care about and help us. So this is not about ego. This is about them making some changes. Like we know lightning splits the sky, lightning starts fires, lightning also brings rain, and lightning announces when there's a shift. Like this is an important thing. Lightning sets a tone that's kind of undeniable. Like you hear the crack of it, and there's a reason that thunder is really never separated from lightning, which makes me think of thunder from the Black Lightning series. We never really separate thunder from lightning, although they're very different in what they do. Thunder is always like this warning, right? So let's get into it. And like I said before, like the first one I'm going to talk about here is Oya, because actually Oya is my favorite. The other two are virtual new jacks to me. Oya is my OG here, okay? So let's talk about Oya. And there's nothing I love better than knowing everybody's nicknames. That tells us a lot about who you are. Magic Johnson told me a lot about who he was coming right out of the gate, right? So Oya, right? So we know her as Oya, but she's also known as Oya of Nine. That's going to be important. Also known as the mother of 9 heavens. She is also the queen of cemetery gates. She is the lady of the whirlwind. She is the Orisha of the Niger River, and she is the guardian of the marketplace, in addition to being she who brings change. Now, I personally love Mother of 9 Heavens, not just because this is 9 World Chronicles, but because this is 9 World Chronicles. And we talk about 9, and 9 is always seen in importance. 9 matters. I don't know if you guys realize this, but I wasn't just randomly pulling a number out. Like, I would not have called this 8 World Chronicles or 4 World Chronicles. I wouldn't. 4 year doesn't really sound that bad, and neither is 8. But they don't have the significance that 9 does. It's very different, right? And traditions associate her with 9 even more and more. 9 is connected to her children. It is said, or in some traditions, said that she bore 9 children, and she commands 9 storm spirits. So in their belief system, 9 represents multiplicity for one, and you can see that in her children. And the spirits, I believe, are all amplifiers of her power. So you can see the multiplicity, that 9 is a good number for if they at least associate it with family. But the other component of it is that 9 represents completion. And this is what I've always worked with. This is what my belief about the number 9 has always been, because it's 9 before you make it's the last one of every set. 9's the last. So you have completed this set of the integral numbers, right? 1 through 9. And then you're setting 1 kind of is repeating with its placeholder being the 0. How you get to 10. And then you'll get to 19, and that will occur again. You get to 99, and it occurs again. So 9, and it does represent completion. That's how they're using it, right? That's why I'm using it. That's a universal concept about 9. And so we see that reflected in her. Now, if we talk about where she comes from, because this is very important about defining her identity, how she was seeing the world, all that stuff. So she comes out of Yoruba, belief system, like the people who are present day living in Nigeria and Benin, right? This is where she originates from. So that places her in pre-colonial West Africa. Very important. Now, the way that Oya was most often spread was through oral tradition, the telling of stories, like literally what I'm doing right now. This is literally oral tradition. I am engaging in oral tradition, which is a history of these people where she originates from. Now, I also took notes, so I don't know if that violates that. So I do have my notes written down, so you can go back and find my notes. But I am passing this along to you guys in oral tradition. This is a long tested standard for educating people about a topic. Just start talking about it, right? I start talking. Some of you guys listen, right? Some of you guys come back and listen more, right? So that's oral tradition. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the bee's knees, right? Like, that's what I believe. We spread knowledge. This is also about, but oral tradition also, because she still survives, right? So this is pre-Columbian when she starts. She's still in existence right now, and I'm going to talk about that. And that's particularly a challenge in a post-colonial world or a colonial world, oral tradition surviving, because it makes it increasingly more difficult, because a lot of times colonial structures control how information spreads. So things aren't written down. If it wasn't chiseled into a rock, it's going to get burnt up. It's going to get destroyed. You're probably going to be killed for talking about it. So I'm not going to get into that part, but that's what we look at when we hear about a deity from West Africa who's surviving today, who primarily was oral tradition, right? But oral tradition is stronger right now. I just kind of proved it that I'm sitting here doing oral tradition for you guys right now. I'm giving you guys oral. In the nice way, right? In the group chat, like, let's talk about stuff like. But Oya herself is part of a faith system that mythically is not dead in any sense. Like, actually, this is a system with a well-developed and very deep cosmology built around these orishas and what the Oludumare at the top of it, right? So this is a well-developed belief system that has great structure in the Candomblé belief system that we see still thriving in Brazil. But we know Brazil ended up with a lot of people from the continent of Africa during that terrible incident known as transatlantic slave trade. So they have a huge populace of people whose lineage comes from there, and it's reinforced over the years. She also exists in Santeria, which you would see in Cuba, right? Strong belief system there. We see them practice their roots. I would also say she's also heavily connected in Haitian voodoo, which can be in a lot of areas. And in Haitian voodoo, she was important, obviously, for the revolt, like the revolution. She was about change. Wind is about change. Lightning is about change. So she would have been strong in that. So geographically, she's got a huge area. Like her bag traveled. Her bag traveled. Her gift in her bag traveled like she was Steph Curry, right? Her bag was mobile because she had strong worship in Africa, and I believe it still resonates there despite the colonization and the infusion of other religions. And she's still active in the Caribbean, in Haiti right now. I don't mean like in the last couple of years. I mean today. I mean, like, I would stand on business. Somebody's probably making an offering to her today. Like somebody probably, as of today, I don't know what time it is where you guys are, but as of today, it's 1:39 here. I bet somebody within that geographic region has made some offering to her, right? So from the diasporic standpoint, she's huge, right? She's huge. Again, I know Zeus got a deep bag. I know Zeus bags travel, but is somebody worshiping Zeus right now at this very moment? I don't know. I know a lot about Zeus, and it probably comes from like Clash of the Titans and some Marvel movies. I've never sat down and said I'm going to worship Zeus or make an offering to him. Is someone doing that? Potentially. I don't know. I feel very confident saying that about Oya, that she's active. She's live and direct. If you want to know about a deity who still got juice, Oya still got juice, right? She's still getting on. I may make an offering to her later on today. You never know, right? Because who wouldn't want Oya on your side? I'd rather have her on my side than against my side, right? They'll be perfect things. So we also want to talk about her is who she's also connected with. And she's a lot of times connected as the wife of Shango, right? She was the wife of the deity Shango, who is said to be the Thunder King. So Oya gets to be known as the Storm Wind. Now, this is a huge significance. Shango throws lightning. Oya controls the storm winds that carry it, right? So he's throwing it out there, and she's taking it and directing it with the winds, right? And she is not a subordinate energy to him. She never has been. I don't know if you're looking at her, if she seems like she'd be a subordinate energy, but trust me, she's not. And don't talk to her like that because she'll tell you about yourself, right? She's movement itself. And so her component in the world, in the whole mythology, is extremely significant just in that regard, okay? Now, previous to that, it's also said that she was married to Shango. Now, Shango himself is associated with iron, fire, and storm. So she goes to a shank, or excuse me, he's iron, he's war, he's technology. So he is different. And I think I think there's some weaponry that he makes that is tied to her, but I'm going to have to look that up because I'm going to talk a little bit about her weapons as well, right? So you can see who she's been associated with, at least in that romantic or consort role. So her weapons, okay, we know about her weapons. We know about the horsehair, whisk that she would carry, that she would whip, and then had lightning in that, an amazing weapon. I think I talk about that when I can do some profiles on weapons. Or if I haven't, I should. She carries a machete. She's also known for her color. She wears purple, like that's it. She claimed purple before that other guy with the symbol did. And she's also associated with winds, buffalo imagery. And the buffalo matters because she is said to transform into a buffalo. That is kind of like her spirit animal, and she will totally get at it in the form of a buffalo, right? So that's an important aspect of who she is. Okay, she's symbolized by the buffalo in that she is the power of wild force. She's not soft energy. Okay, never been soft energy. Nothing soft about this girl, this lady. And she also has dominion over death, right? So this is where she gets to become unique because she guards over cemeteries. She controls the wind that carry the dead into the spirit realm. Again, says she controls the wind. That's one of her main things. She is not death itself. That's important. She's simply the passage. That's what Oya represents, is the passage from the living world into the world of the dead, right? So she's not like Baron Samdi, who rules death, or Ma, who embodies death. She simply governs the crossing that exists. So I would almost say in that role, she's kind of more Anpu, or I'm trying to think of his other name, Anpu, or oh man, Anubis, right? I'm sorry, it took me a little while to get there. As that symbolically being the one who helps guide you down the road. And symbolically now, in stories about her, she's typically known for bringing tornadoes, reshaping landscapes. She actually defeats Shango in battle, which I didn't know about that. She sacrifices herself at times in some traditions. She transforms. And in stories, she's typically described as being very fierce, very jealous. So don't get it twisted, fellers. And she's also very protective of her people. That's kind of her connection to the community, is that she's very protective of her people, and she's also very strong and independent. She is not your typical demure divine femininity. She is weather, and that carries a lot of X factors with it when you're weather, right? That means a lot. I mean, that says a lot about how you're going to get out. Now, if we go back and we look at her timeline, she is prior to the 15th century. She gets started in oral Yoruba cosmology. By the 16th through the 19th century, now she is of diasporic transmission. So she's being spread about because of the diaspora, because of, that thing that was going on, right, during the Atlantic, right? We're all aware of that. And then she gets synchronized with the Catholic saints. At that point, that kind of locks her in for her prevalence going forward in modern times, because she's locked into the belief system that's dominant in that area, and she's part of it, right? She's part of the Catholic system because she got synchronized, and that's how people were able to still keep her praise and worship active, right? And then she becomes a part of this renewal, as people have gotten renewed faith in the Yoruba traditions. They're carrying, of course, her part of it. She's a huge part of the Yoruba cosmology. So you're not going to be able to have good conversations about that belief system and not talk about her. So that means she's back, baby. That means that after all these years, she's still back, she's live, she's direct, and we'll see how these other deities hold up in comparison, right? So the first one, again, we go to Chaac. I'm trying to pronounce that right. Chaac, right? You got to cut that K. The A's got to be like father, father, Chaac, right? So you got to be hardcore on that, right? Or they'll shred you. I'm trying not to get shredded. He is known as the axe that feeds civilization. Now, right off the bat, I really like that, man. I'm not gonna lie. It has, not just a self-importance, but a topical importance. He knows what's important to all the rest of us. We want to eat. He feeds civilization. This is the guy that makes sure when I get off of here and I go in the kitchen that there's going to be something there for me to eat, right? Which I'm going to be very, very excited about because I'm already getting hungry, right? I'm already hungry right now. So I'm glad I know that Chaac took care of things. But he's also known as the god of rain. He's also known as Lord of lightning, bringer of storms. Love that, right? That's one of the best. He who splits the clouds, very important name, gets right to the point of what he does. Axe bearer of the sky, which you see him wrapping his axe right there. No lies detected. Not one single lie detected. And the Lord of the four directions, which is always about wind current, right? And this guy comes from like ancient Mayan inscriptions. And there's various names or spellings depending on the area or region and the time period. But he's been there from the beginning, so the systems evolve around him, right? And you can see the Yucatan Maya is primarily where the information that we get about him comes from, but he's also known from the classic Maya glyph inscriptions. So this is the whole point, okay? Now, there are 4 Chacs, essentially. There's the east or red Chaac, the north or white Chaac, the west or black Chaac, and the south or yellow Chaac. That is mad racist. I don't know why I felt that, but I just kind of feel like it is, right? So what the symbolism of it actually means is more important. Lightning is not singular. Lightning is directional. It surrounds the world. So that kind of just ties into that component. And who, the when, where are the people? So let's talk about who are the people that embrace these deities. He emerges from the civilizations of the Mayan. We're around southern New Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula. This would be Guatemala. This is what Belize. This will be Western Honduras. These will be places right in his wheelhouse for making a name for yourself. Especially if your name is, I be jacking people if they have lightning power. So this is kind of where he is, okay? And his time period, his time range, right? So he's southern Mexico, he's Guatemala, he's Belize, he's Western Honduras. His time periods will start as far back as 2000 BCE at the beginning of Mayan culture. That's very important that he's baked into the culture. So we're not surprised that we see a cultural output of him now. He continued to the classic period, 250 to about 970 CE, Common Era. And then post this, he's been involved with this period from approximately 900 to about 1500 BCE. He does have Greek-style myths written. So he does not have Greek, Zeus-style myths written. So he lives on temple carvings. These are going to be important. Glyph inscriptions and ritual reenactments, right? That's how he stays along. And again, what he comes from is a Hegelian civilization theory. And if you're a Hegelian, that means you live someplace dry and you're going to need water. Like rain equals collapse. So no rain is really, really bad. And that's kind of how it is when they don't get any rain. That's why they're praying this guy. Now, the Mayan culture in cities is built on dealing with drought, limestone terrain with few rivers, and reliance on sky or sinkholes to predict weather. So it's a flawed system. Rain wasn't just poetic, rain was also political. The kings performed rituals to invoke Chaac. Come on, you've seen the rain dances. Come on down here and dance with us. Bring us some rain. We're thirsty down here, right? And who is he connected to? Because he is legitimacy. Now, it's Tsunama, who is the creator god. Kukulkan, who I have talked about, who was the wind and serpent symbolism. So that matters because lightning in Mesoamerica is often serpent-like. It twists, it strikes, but many depictions are showing that Chaac interfering with some cosmic species and linking storm itself to serpent or sky serpent imagery. That actually kind of makes sense. Now, what he operates, you can see he's got his axe. That's his primary thing. He strikes clouds with it to release rain. So that's how he regulates and gets the rain down on people. He's not just thunder, but he is precision impact. His symbolic symbols includes the long curling noose, fangs, Google-like eyes, and reptilian features. And he has all that, right? So the ritual and the sacrifices. This is where it gets real weight because in some time periods, and I'm not joking with you guys. This is important, right? This is really important. In certain time periods, children were sacrificed to Chaac. So that changes the math. Like now, you don't seem like such a cool guy that you allow, children. But at any rate, children's tears were symbolized as rain. There's a lot that people drew off of the sacrifice of children. Because who else wouldn't want to sacrifice their life? It's a freaking kid. Why would I give up living and running around and playing so you guys can go do something stupid? And no child will give up their life and safety for that. And that's terrible that they ever did that, right? But let's look at what his timeline is. So again, he starts like 2000 BCE. So we're 6,000 years past the point where he started. And this is early agricultural rituals emerge. By 250 to 900 CE, he appears in other temple facades. So they're still putting him around. And it's continued. Even in modern times, he's part of post-classic cities that will talk about this mythology. So he's been suppressed, but he persists through folk tales. That's another way of saying oral tradition. I don't know why they feel so fancy about saying it, but it's all oral tradition, which is what I'm doing right now. Oral tradition. That's how it works down, right? So he survives throughout all the conquests. I mean, that's the amazing thing. Most of these gods do disappear. We never hear about them again. He is able to keep prolific while getting that, what's that airplane movie kind of vibe where you're not getting good roles, but you just stay relevant. So he kind of manages to stay relevant. He survives no matter what. That's who he is. So he has some kind of Oya energy, okay, in their survival energy that he's right now. She definitely is. So, but she is transitional wind. He is a sustaining strike. So he doesn't represent chaos. He represents necessity. Lightning is here for agriculture resets, climate control, and political legitimacy. That's where he gets his strength from. He is like a cosmic irrigation system, and that's different from Oya, kind of regulating the cemetery gates. But he is a god of rain, but he's also the guy who owns a split and splits the sky with an axe. He's a reason that maize grows. He is the difference between feminine and empire. So he has a lot of good points on how he moves. And his lightning axe is about striking clouds. It's about bringing rain. It's about agriculture survival. So lightning is never about destruction. Lightning for him is always about, how should I say, like harvesting. It really is. It's how he sees it. He's providing the civilization insurance that you keep going. Although he did scare me because, I want to say that he told me to shut up. I kind of think that happened between me and him, and I'm not really talking about it right now. Okay. So we know he's known by some names like the Thunder God, the Lightning God, the Lord Thunderer, and the Sounding God because of their belief systems. So we know kind of where he is. The Sounding God, the Lightning Deity is who he's known as. So he's not just a bolt, he is the sky itself. He is the difference from theology, from outsider theology to what they really actually believe in the Mesoamerican culture. And I'm happy to see that. This is a good representation. Now, he emerges from Japanese Shinto history. So we do know that about him as we go on to Raiden. Now we're going into Raiden, who is the new guy. Now, Raiden is the guy that we know of. He's different. Like, okay, whereas Chaac was lightning strikes that bring rain, he wasn't lightning for destruction. This was civilizational survival, is what he was manifesting. Raiden is different. He's known as the god of thunder. He's known as the lightning thunder. He's known as the Lord Thunderer. And he's associated to not just thunder, but he is the noise of the sky. Very different. So again, this is Shinto Japanese mythology with the strong Buddhist influence. So structurally, this is the Japanese archipelago, all the Japanese islands. In early timelines, like early pre-8th century, he was a part of Shinto mythic foundation. He was formally brought into text at 712, and he continues now through the Buddhist medieval synchronization. So in modern pop culture and religious iconography, this is a very strong figure. This is a deity that survived through the samurai era, the feudal era, and the modern anime era. So this is long continuity that he's breaking down for us. Now, what he represents in climate is monsoon rains, typhoons, seasonal storms, rice agriculture, right? Rain and water. And like Chaac, he's rain that is about survival. So in cosmology, thunder is often associated to purification, to fertility, to divine disturbances. So rain isn't just about irrigation, it's about being clean. That's what it really meant. He's also connected to Fu Jin, who is the wind, him being that thunder. So you can see that association. And he is born from or connected to Izunami, who I believe is death, if I'm getting Izunami right. I'm right. After she dies and descends to the underworld, Yami, the thunder god, emerges from her decaying body. So that's another one of his names and why he chooses to come out of her body at that time, which seems smart. And he goes back on to being in the regular actualized world. Now, he has some weapons, including a thunder drum when he beats to create thunder, obviously. He's surrounded by a ring of drums, and other times he's depicted with wild hair, like he kind of has here. He's almost kind of demon-looking. His lightning is not necessarily a spear, it's percussion, and sound precedes the strike. So he's kind of the thunder and the lightning. What's significant about him is that his common stories is anger causes storms. He is sometimes mischievous and kind of playful, and he can be feared by stormers, the farmers, at the same time that he's loved, right? And he's associated, like I said, with survival, but also for this area, rice growth. Now, historically, he's got a great timeline. But by 712, he's part of a larger compilation of work. And during the medieval period, he's just connected with Buddhist and Shinto belief systems. So he's tied in that. And modern pop culture, he's in movies and games right now. He's in anime right now. So he's living his best life. How he's different from Oya and Chaac, or similar, is that Oya's transitional wind and death gates. Chaac is agricultural strike and rain. Raijin is sonic wall and this atmospheric like purity, right? Like it's a pure system when he's in it. He represents shockwave, resonance, sound when it's made visible. So if Oya is actually movement, then Chaac is impact and he is the reverberation, because he's always echoing to the sound of the universe, the early sound. So he is a Japanese thunder. We get his strength when we kind of look at all three of them, right? The wind, the axe, the drum is what they wielded. So different technologies. And the earliest roots of this character is way back. So he's among the oldest at 2000 BCE, but his iconography didn't get really, really good until about 300 BCE when they started really loving him more. And there was a lot of discoveries that were going on. So with each one of these guys, I think gives an excellent input in like how thunder moves differently. The Oya tradition in Yoruba belief system is deeply rooted, and it goes way beyond European contact and has entered into the New World. As far as right now, she's on track to continue strong growth. Raijin, I don't know if even the gaming helps him, because I don't know if people associate the two. I definitely will look at it different, but it's definitely not him. But he's still staying alive and relevant. And the same thing for Chaac. He's got a long history, probably going back 2,000 years. Okay. And who came first really doesn't matter, but I'm going to guess Chaac is probably the first one to be talked about. So he's among the oldest ones. Now, for each one of these, like their crossover phase was about 250 to about 900 BCE, where all of them were being active. Maya classic period is flourishing. Early Japanese state formation is good, and West African is expanding, at least in the cosmological sense. So we're hearing a lot more about it. So all of them were getting their run and their shine at the same times. Now these all come from different continents. They engage storms differently, and they move with slightly different approaches. But we can all see that they're water deities. So how do you feel about the water? Would you sip a cup here of the water that comes from Oya? And I would. Now, in terms of like tradition, by the 1800s at least, or 1500s, Oya goes global. She gets into Brazil, Cuba, all the Caribbean spiritual spaces. So she has traveled, I think, the most. Whereas Chaac, his worship kind of declined after the Spanish conquered the Mayan people and the other people in the region. So we can see the how and the why, and why some of these deities are still around. Oya is still actively worshipped today, including Nigeria, Brazil, Cuba, and involved in diasporic, religious communities, and part of the Afro diasporic identity. She's not myth for illusion. She's a modern day deity. Now, Chaac is actually still studied in academically. He is a symbol of Maya in cultural identity. So, and he's referenced in a lot of like artwork, especially for tourism. Jaden, man, let's see. He's still religious in pop culture, so he still survives. He's in Shinto art temples. He's still representing festivals. So he's still popping around. I don't know if he's still the icon that Oya is, but we can see these are three deities who've been moving for 2,000, 3,000 years that we've been talking to them, and they're still 100% relevant. So that's my MythLab for today, just talking about these different representations of lightning and thunder in terms of godhood, and that it can be different than what we're used to. So again, we didn't have anyone in the chat. I know you guys are still shy, but don't hesitate. Otherwise, it's going to get real boring just looking at me yapping. But I'd love to hear more about what you guys have to say, what you're interested in, what questions. Again, I am here for your mythological queries, right? So just make use of it. And anyway, I'm going to jump off now. This will be back up on the site. You can watch it. As always, if you like what I do, please go and hit that like.